Have you ever asked yourself how the king of pop, Michael Jackson, a global icon, ended up dependent on a powerful hospital-grade anesthetic just to sleep? Or how Whitney Houston, with her angelic voice and picture-perfect image, silently battled an addiction that would ultimately destroy her? And what about Jimi Hendrix, whose electrifying talent was matched only by the turmoil fueled by drugs and fame? These aren't just cautionary tales, they're tragic reminders of the price of fame. In this video, we uncover 25 black celebrities whose struggles with substance abuse were far worse than you ever imagined. Some hid it well. Others didn't survive it. Let's dive into the heartbreaking truths behind the spotlight. Michael Jackson. In the dazzling spotlight of global fame, Michael Jackson stood alone, an icon, a genius, the undisputed king of pop. But behind the electrifying performances and flawless moonwalks was a man quietly unraveling. Tormented by chronic insomnia, Jackson sought refuge in a dangerous cocktail of prescription drugs. Most notably, propofol, the powerful anesthetic he hauntingly referred to as his milk. What began as a desperate solution for sleep soon spiraled into a lethal dependency. Pushed by the relentless demands of superstardom and the weight of perfection, Jackson drifted deeper into isolation, his inner circle growing smaller as the pills grew stronger. Then, in 2009, the unthinkable happened. The world froze as news broke of his sudden death, a fatal overdose that ended a life already fraying at the seams. Though his music lives on in eternal rhythm, his tragic downfall stands as a chilling reminder. Even legends can be broken by the silence of their private suffering. No spotlight, no applause, no crown can protect against the deadly grip of addiction. Whitney Houston. Whitney Houston. A voice that soared like no other, flawless, powerful, and seemingly heaven-sent. She was the definition of greatness, an icon who inspired millions with every note she sang. But behind the dazzling spotlight and picture-perfect smile was a haunting truth. As her fame climbed, so did the shadows of addiction. The woman who embodied grace on stage was quietly unraveling off of it. Her turbulent marriage to Bobby Brown became tabloid fuel, exposing a heartbreaking world of shared chaos and self-destruction. Over time, the magic in her voice began to fade, dulled by the grip of substances, missed shows, and unpredictable behavior. Then, in 2012, the unimaginable happened. Whitney was found lifeless in a hotel bathtub. A toxic mix of drugs was discovered in her system, signaling the tragic fall of a once unbreakable star. Her story is one of brilliance eclipsed by pain, a reminder that even the brightest lights can burn out too soon. Samuel L. Jackson. Samuel L. Jackson, before he became a Hollywood legend with that booming voice and razor-sharp presence, was a man on the edge. In the 1980s, behind the scenes, he was drowning in addiction. Day after day, he spiraled deeper, trapped in a cycle that threatened to silence his rising talent forever. Despite his undeniable charisma and love for the craft, he became unreliable, an actor slipping through the cracks. But then came the moment that changed everything. His family, terrified of losing him, staged an intervention. It was a final plea. Jackson listened. He checked into rehab, and that decision saved his life. Climbing out of addiction wasn't easy, but he fought like hell for his second chance. And when he played a crack addict in Jungle Fever, the pain on screen was real. That role wasn't just acting, it was his truth laid bare. Today, Samuel L. Jackson is one of the most iconic actors of our time. But his story is more than a Hollywood comeback. It's a powerful reminder that recovery is possible, even from the brink. Still, you have to wonder, how many never make it out? Jimi Hendrix. Jimi Hendrix wasn't just a guitarist. He was a force of nature, a lightning bolt in human form who seemed to summon sound from another dimension every time his fingers touched the strings. But behind the explosive talent was a man wrestling with demons. The kaleidoscopic culture of the 1960s lured him deep into a world of psychedelics, beginning with LSD and spiraling into a dangerous cocktail of harder substances and barbiturates. As Hendrix's fame skyrocketed, so did the turbulence in his life. His drug-fueled highs sometimes sparked creative brilliance, but more often left emotional wreckage in their wake, damaging relationships, fraying his health, and eroding his peace. Then came the night of September 18, 1970. Alone and vulnerable, Hendrix slipped into unconsciousness after mixing wine with sleeping pills. He never woke up, choking in his sleep, gone at just 27. His untimely death placed him among the haunting legends of the 27 Club, artists who burned too bright and vanished too soon. Hendrix's story is both a tribute to his genius and a cautionary tale of how addiction can silence even the loudest, most brilliant voices in music history. Billie Holiday. Billie Holiday's voice wasn't just music, it was a soul crying out through every note, raw and unforgettable. But behind the beauty of her sound was a life marred by pain, racism, and relentless struggle. As a black woman in a brutally segregated America, she faced a world that often silenced and punished her. Addiction, born from deep wounds and despair, became both her escape and her undoing. The law didn't see her as a legend, it saw her as a target. Repeated arrests for drug possession marked her path, each one a cruel chapter in an already tragic story. When her cabaret license was stripped away, she was banned from the very nightclubs that had built her fame. Even as she lay dying in a hospital bed in 1959, police stood guard outside her door, an unyielding symbol of the system that never let her breathe. Billie Holiday's life was crushed under the weight of injustice, yet her voice still rises above it all. Her legacy is a haunting reminder of what happens when brilliance meets a world too cruel to nurture it. One can only wonder, what might she have become if the world had shown her mercy instead of chains? Mary J. Blige. Mary J. Blige, the queen who rose from the ashes. Mary J. Blige, crowned the queen of hip-hop soul, didn't just rise to fame, she clawed her way through darkness to get there. Her success was dazzling, but behind the spotlight lived a woman haunted by pain. Born into poverty and scarred by childhood trauma, Mary's early life was a battlefield. The wounds ran deep, and the escape came in the form of alcohol and drugs, temporary silences to a lifetime of screams. As the world fell in love with her voice, she was quietly unraveling. The pressures of fame, the unhealed hurt, the toxic relationships, they all fed into a storm that nearly consumed her. Addiction seeped into every part of her life, threatening to destroy the very gift that made her a star. But fame couldn't fix what was broken inside. Then came the turning point. Mary looked her demons in the eye and chose to fight. With therapy, fierce determination, and a soul-searching journey of healing, she found her way back to herself. Her sobriety wasn't just a personal victory, it was a rebirth. Today, Mary J. Blige is more than a legend. She's a survivor, a symbol of strength, and a voice for anyone battling their own storm. Her story isn't just one of fame, it's a powerful testament to resilience, redemption, and the courage to rise. Naomi Campbell. Naomi Campbell, the towering icon of 90s fashion, was a vision of elegance on the runway, but behind the spotlight, she waged a private war with chaos. As the first black supermodel to dominate the global stage, Naomi shattered racial barriers with every fierce strut. Yet, the pressures of fame, the relentless pace of the industry, and a search for control led her down a dangerous path. Substance abuse became a seductive escape, one that slowly blurred the line between brilliance and breakdown. Her dazzling success began to buckle under the weight of erratic behavior, legal troubles, and mounting headlines that threatened to overshadow her legacy. At the peak of her career, Naomi stood on the edge. But in 2004, she chose redemption. Through rehab, she found not only sobriety but a renewed sense of purpose. She reclaimed her grace, not just as a model, but as a survivor and advocate. Today, Naomi Campbell uses her voice to uplift others facing addiction, proving that even in the darkest hours, recovery is possible, and resilience can walk the runway too. Chaka Khan. Chaka Khan, the queen who battled her demons and reclaimed her throne. Chaka Khan, the undisputed queen of funk, lit up every stage she touched with fire, soul, and a voice that could move mountains. But behind the glittering lights and roaring applause, she was fighting a war that few could see, a decades-long battle with addiction that nearly silenced her magic. Through the 80s, as fame soared, so did the chaos. The pressure, the spotlight, the fast-paced life, it all became a storm that dragged her deeper into alcohol and substance abuse. Her legendary voice, once a beacon of power and freedom, began to tremble under the weight of her pain. But Chaka didn't give in. She fought her way back, bravely entering rehab, choosing sobriety, and reclaiming control over her life and her art. From the ashes of her struggle, a new Chaka emerged, stronger, wiser, and more radiant than ever. Her music took on new depth, infused with themes of healing, survival, and soul-deep strength. Off stage, she became more than a star. She became a symbol of redemption, using her voice not just to sing, but to speak life into others still fighting their own battles. Chaka Khan didn't just survive the storm, she turned it into a song. Etta James. Etta James, a voice carved from pain, power, and pure soul. Behind her unforgettable sound was a life marked by turmoil. Her battle with addiction began young, tightening its grip just as the spotlight found her. As her star rose, so did the shadows. Addiction stalked her every step, dimming even her brightest moments. Legal troubles, jail time, and broken trust followed, threatening to silence a voice that once seemed unstoppable. But even at rock bottom, her voice never lost its truth. It cried, it ached, it bled, becoming a raw, honest reflection of her deepest struggles. Through rehab and fierce determination, Etta slowly reclaimed her life and legacy. Her music, soaked in vulnerability and defiance, became more than performance. it became survival. And for every scar she carried, there was a note that healed. Etta James didn't just sing the blues. She lived them, conquered them, and transformed them into a sound that still speaks to the wounded and the weary. Her story is not just one of pain, but of powerful, unforgettable resilience.
Rick James.
Rick James was more than just a music icon. He was a force of nature. The electrifying genius behind Super Freak, James embodied the wild, unapologetic spirit of funk. In the 1980s, he was untouchable. His sound redefined a generation, and his stage presence was magnetic. But behind the flashing lights and platinum hits, a darker story brewed. The same fire that sparked his brilliance also lit the fuse of his destruction. Addiction didn't sneak in quietly, it crashed into his life like a storm. Cocaine, legal troubles, erratic outbursts. His personal demons danced right alongside his hits.
Friends faded. His health crumbled.
His grip on reality grew more fragile with each relapse. He tried to claw his way back to sobriety, but the abyss always seemed to pull harder. When Rick James passed away in 2004, the world lost a trailblazer. His music still pulses with raw energy, but his life stands as a cautionary tale. A stark reminder that genius, when left unchecked by self-discipline, can burn just as brightly as it can destructively. Rick James didn't just push boundaries, he lived on the edge of them, and in the end, that edge cut deep.
Lauryn Hill.
Lauryn Hill, a voice that once roared with truth, power, and poetic fire, slowly faded into the background, slipping from the very spotlight she once commanded. As the soulful force behind the Fugees and the genius mind behind the miseducation of Lauryn Hill, she was hailed as a prophet of her generation, fearless, raw, and revolutionary. But fame has a way of turning light into pressure. The world watched, then whispered. Rumors swirled, of self-isolation, of substance struggles, of a brilliance weighed down by invisible wounds. Lauryn herself spoke of emotional battles and a mental toll too heavy to bear. It wasn't a fall, it was a retreat. A quiet rebellion against a world that demanded too much. In rare performances since, her voice still stirs something deep, laced with pain, wisdom, and defiance. Her story lingers like one of her lyrics, forcing us to ask, what does it truly cost to be extraordinary in a world that punishes those who are?
Flavor Flav.
Flavor Flav, the man with the booming voice and the iconic clock around his neck, was more than just a hype man for Public Enemy. Behind the wild outfits and larger-than-life persona was a man quietly battling demons. While he lit up stages with his infectious energy, offstage he spiraled into a world of addiction, arrests, domestic chaos, and courtroom drama. Struggles most fans never truly saw. How could a symbol of rebellion and revolution fall into such personal ruin? But Flav's story didn't end there. He clawed his way back from the edge, embracing sobriety and using reality TV not just for fame, but for healing. Flavor of Love may have been chaotic and controversial, but it became a surprising path to redemption. Today, his voice carries more than rhythm, it carries resilience. The clock still swings around his neck, but now every tick is a reminder of how far he's come, and how every second counts.
DMX.
DMX, to the world, he was a roaring force in hip-hop, but behind the name Earl Simmons was a man crying out for peace. His gravelly voice and raw lyrics weren't just music, they were echoes of a life scarred by pain. From a young age, addiction took root, becoming the shadow that followed him through fame and fortune. Even as he rose to the top of the rap game, his battles didn't stop. Courtrooms, jail cells, and rehab facilities became as familiar as platinum records. DMX lived in dual worlds, an unstoppable artist who gave strength to millions, yet a soul locked in a relentless war with his demons. In 2021, his heart finally gave out, overwhelmed by the very pain he had spent a lifetime fighting. His death wasn't just a tragedy, it was a warning, a haunting reminder of how unyielding addiction can be. And yet, through the speakers, his voice still asks us, how do we heal in a world that keeps breaking us? Richard Pryor. Richard Pryor, the comedian who turned pain into punchlines. Richard Pryor was a man who made the world laugh, while quietly burning from the inside out. He turned trauma into comedy, but behind the laughter was a storm he could never outrun. His drug of choice became both his creative fuel and his slow undoing. In 1980, that inner fire erupted into a real one. While freebasing, Pryor was engulfed in flames, running down the street, ablaze and screaming. It wasn't just a physical catastrophe, it was the terrifying embodiment of years of self-destruction. Though he tried to claw his way back through rehab and reflection, the shadows lingered. His health declined, his behavior became unpredictable, but through it all, his brilliance on stage never dimmed. Richard Pryor lived in contradiction, a man whose comedy gave millions joy, even as he wrestled with demons that nearly consumed him. He was both a beacon of resilience and a portrait of pain. How do you survive being a symbol of strength, when inside, you're still breaking?
Bobby Brown.
Bobby Brown, the self-proclaimed bad boy of R&B, lived life in the fast lane, dancing on the edge of fame, chaos, and heartbreak. His rise was electric, fueled by talent and swagger. But behind the spotlight, addiction to drugs and alcohol pulled him into a dark spiral. His fiery, tabloid-fueled relationship with Whitney Houston became a cautionary tale. Two superstars bound by love, yet undone by the same demons. Tragedy didn't strike just once. First, he lost Whitney in 2012. Then, in a cruel twist of fate, their daughter Bobby Christina followed in 2015. These back-to-back heartbreaks forced Bobby to face the wreckage of his past. In his sobriety, he found purpose, using his story to speak out on addiction, grief, and the power of survival. Bobby Brown's life is a raw testament to pain, perseverance, and the possibility of redemption. But it leaves us wondering, how much can a man lose before he's truly free?
Charlie Parker.
Charlie Parker, known to the world as Bird, was more than a jazz legend. He was a force that transformed music with every haunting note of his saxophone. But behind the brilliance was a tortured soul shackled by addiction. Introduced to drugs as a teenager, Parker's genius was forever entangled with a quiet, consuming despair. His saxophone wasn't just an instrument, it was his voice, his heartbeat. And yet, there were nights he traded that lifeline for a fleeting high. How could a man so deeply devoted to music abandon the very thing that saved him? The answer lies in the seductive pull of his demons, an escape from the weight of fame and the ache of living. His addiction ravaged his body, emptied his pockets, and strained every bond he had. Still, his music never missed a beat. It carried the raw beauty of his brilliance and the deep wounds of his suffering. Even as his world fell apart, his sound defined a generation. But at just 34, the music stopped. Charlie Parker's life ended, but his legacy plays on, leaving us to wonder, how many cries for help are hidden in the songs we hold dear? Old Dirty Bastard. O.L. Dirty Bastard, even his name felt like a warning shot. As the wild heart of the Wu-Tang Clan, ODB wasn't just unpredictable, he was electric. He tore through hip-hop's rulebook with raw, unfiltered emotion, turning chaos into art. But behind the brilliance was a man at war with himself. Addiction clung to him like a shadow, driving him deeper into erratic behavior, courtroom dramas, and prison cells. His genius was undeniable, but so was his unraveling. When he rapped, the world couldn't look away. His voice was a storm, his presence a spectacle. But the same fire that lit up the mic ultimately consumed him. At just 35, a fatal overdose silenced a force that couldn't be tamed. ODB didn't just live fast, he burned through life like a shooting star. Was he doomed from the start? Or was that chaos part of the brilliance all along?
Wendy Williams.
Wendy Williams, the bold, unfiltered queen of media, rose to fame with her razor-sharp wit and no-holds-barred interviews. But while her voice dominated the airwaves, her early success was quietly shadowed by a dangerous secret: substance addiction. Behind the mic, the pressure of fame and the demands of radio and television became suffocating, and drugs offered a deceptive escape. Wendy wore her pain like a mask, always showing up polished, composed, and camera-ready. Few knew the storm she was battling behind the scenes. But she didn't let it consume her. In time, Wendy reclaimed her life and rewrote her story. She became a fearless advocate for sobriety, speaking openly about addiction's grip and offering hope to others caught in its web. Her transformation from hidden struggle to triumphant survival turned her into more than a media icon. She became a symbol of strength. Wendy's journey forces us to wonder, how many smiling faces in the spotlight are silently fighting for their lives?
Phyllis Hyman.
Phyllis Hyman had a voice like velvet, smooth, powerful, and soul-stirring. On stage, she radiated elegance and grace, captivating audiences with every note. But behind that dazzling presence was a woman fighting battles most never saw. For years, Phyllis quietly endured the weight of severe depression and substance abuse, masking her pain behind love ballads and heartbreak anthems. Her music healed others, even as she struggled to heal herself. On June 30, 1995, just hours before she was set to perform, Phyllis ended her life. The note she left behind revealed a deep, unbearable sorrow. Her death sent shockwaves through the music world, a devastating reminder of how hidden pain can consume even the brightest stars. Fans were left mourning not only the loss of her extraordinary talent but the silent suffering she carried for so long. Her story is a haunting legacy, a voice that still moves hearts, and a tragedy that forces us to confront the urgent need for better mental health support in the entertainment industry. How many more must we lose before we truly listen? Before we ensure that behind every spotlight, there's real support, not just applause?
Nate Dogg.
Nate Dogg, the smooth, soulful voice behind hip-hop's most unforgettable hooks, was more than just a collaborator, he was the heartbeat of the West Coast sound. His rich, melodic tone turned street anthems into timeless classics, making him a legend in his own right. But behind the music, Nate was battling demons fame couldn't silence. In 2007, a devastating stroke struck him down, followed by another just a year later. Rumors of substance abuse cast a dark cloud over his final years, hinting at the heavy price he paid for life in the spotlight. Still, his influence never faded. He left behind a legacy etched in gold, with verses that continue to echo through speakers worldwide. In 2011, the music world lost him far too soon, only 41, and already a giant. Nate Dogg's life is a haunting reminder. Behind every beat and bar we celebrate are fragile souls carrying unimaginable weight. How many more voices must we lose before we learn to protect the artists behind the art we love?
Chris Kelly.
Chris Kelly, the electrifying heartbeat of the 90s rap duo Criss Cross, once made the world jump to his rhythm. Just a kid, barely into his teens, he rocketed to stardom with baggy pants, boundless energy, and a chart-topping anthem that became a cultural phenomenon. But behind the stage lights and screaming fans was a boy carrying a weight far heavier than fame ever let on. The higher he climbed, the more his shadows followed. As the years passed, the noise faded, but the silence grew louder. The pressures that fame brought never left him, they only morphed into darker companions. Substance abuse slipped in quietly, tightening its grip until it became a battle fought behind closed doors. By his 30s, the once vibrant star who made the world dance was quietly unraveling, caught in a heartbreaking struggle to reclaim his life and legacy. On May 1, 2013, that fight came to a devastating end. At just 34, Chris Kelly died of a drug overdose, another young talent lost too soon, not to obscurity, but to the cost of carrying fame without guidance. His story is a bittersweet echo of innocence lost, a cautionary tale of what happens when the spotlight burns too hot, too fast. And while the music still plays, his legacy now carries a haunting question. What happens to the child stars we cheer for, once the cheering stops?
Cat Williams.
Cat Williams, a name that echoes with raw wit and electric charisma. On stage, he was a force of nature, turning truth into punchlines and pain into laughter. His voice became a lifeline for those searching for both escape and understanding. But behind the spotlight, a storm was brewing. Fame didn't just elevate him, it exposed him. Struggles with addiction, a string of arrests, and public meltdowns began to overshadow the brilliance of his comedy. The same world that once cheered him on became quick to judge. Yet through it all, Cat never stopped standing tall, mic in hand, heart on display. He turned his scars into stories, and his battles into bravado. His comedy wasn't just entertainment, it was survival, a raw reflection of a man wrestling with his demons while still daring to make the world laugh. For his fans, he wasn't just a comedian. He was a symbol of resilience, of vulnerability wrapped in defiance. His journey is still unfolding. But one truth remains: Cat Williams has never backed down from the chaos. He's embraced it, transformed it, and made it his stage. The question is, can laughter truly heal the wounds left by fame's harsh glare? Or is the spotlight just another battlefield where survival is the real punchline?
Rob Pilatus.
Rob Pilatus, the illusion of fame, the reality of pain. Rob Pilatus was the picture of success, the flashy clothes, the chart-topping hits, the adoring fans. As one half of the pop duo Milli Vanilli, his image was everywhere. His voice, or so the world believed, defined an era. But behind the polished smile and MTV glitz was a devastating secret. Rob and his partner had never sung a single note. It was all a carefully constructed illusion. When the truth came crashing down, it didn't just ruin a career, it destroyed a life. Overnight, Rob went from pop idol to pariah. Their Grammy was stripped.
The public mocked him.
The industry that once praised him now pretended he never existed. The shame was suffocating. With his reputation in ruins, Rob turned to drugs. Anything to numb the pain of betrayal, humiliation, and lost identity. He tried to make a comeback, to reclaim some part of himself that wasn't built on lies. But the shadows of the past never let go. No matter how hard he fought, the stain of scandal clung to him. In 1998, at just 33 years old, Rob Pilatus was found dead in a Munich hotel room, alone, broken, and silenced by an overdose. His story is more than a cautionary tale about fame. It's a haunting reminder of what happens when the spotlight burns too hot and the truth is buried too deep. How many lives has the entertainment machine chewed up and spat out? And in the end, can a shattered soul ever truly find redemption?
Frankie Lymon.
Frankie Lymon, the golden boy who fell too fast. Frankie Lyman wasn't just a teen idol, he was a lightning bolt in the dawn of rock and roll. At just 13, with a voice that seemed too powerful for such a small frame, he asked the world, "Why do fools fall in love?" and instantly carved his name into music history. But while the spotlight made him a star, it also became his curse. Fame came fast and hard, giving a child the world but no map to survive it. By his mid-teens, the sweet sound of success was drowned out by something darker: addiction. Heroin crept in early, tightening its grip with every passing year. The music industry, once eager to cash in on his talent, turned its back when he needed help the most. As the years went by, the bright-eyed boy who once lit up stages was now battling obscurity, legal troubles, and a desperate longing to be heard again. By 25, Frankie was a shadow of the star he used to be, his life scattered with broken contracts, shattered dreams, and a haunting loneliness. On a cold February morning in 1968, he was found dead in a Harlem bathroom, a needle by his side. The voice that once lifted hearts had been silenced forever. Frankie Lyman's rise and fall remains one of music's most heartbreaking cautionary tales, a tragic reminder of how quickly innocence can be lost, and how fame without protection can destroy what it once celebrated. Clifford Joseph Harris Jr. Clifford Joseph Harris Jr., better known as T.I., the self-declared king of the South, has walked a path paved with both glory and heartbreak. Rising from Atlanta's fierce rap scene, T.I. quickly claimed fame, but trouble wasn't far behind. After serving time in prison, he turned to prescription drugs, not for pleasure, but to quiet the storm of anxiety and pain that haunted him. What started as a way to cope soon tightened its grip, threatening to destroy everything he built. But T.I. didn't let addiction write his final verse. He sought help, stared down his demons, and began the hard climb back. Each stumble was met with renewed determination, each step forward proof that change was possible. Today, T.I. isn't just a rapper, he's a voice for mental health, a fierce advocate against substance misuse, and a mentor to those lost in the same battles he once fought. His story isn't perfect, but it's powerful. From the depths of despair to a symbol of resilience, T.I. stands as living proof that redemption is real, and that even the fallen can rise again, stronger than before. That's a wrap for this video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like, drop a comment, share it with your friends, and hit that subscribe button. Your support means the world and gives me the motivation to keep creating more content. Thanks so much for watching.